Shannon Hall's family farmed the same Arkansas soil for 11 generations. They survived the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, the Great Depression, the Dust Bowl, the 1980s farm crisis. This year, they sold everything. The Hall name, after 240 years, will never farm Arkansas again. And if you think this doesn't affect you, Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders just called this one of the worst farm crises in generations. She's scrambling to stop the bleeding, because right now, 1 in 3 Arkansas farms is about to disappear. 1 in 3. But here's what Governor Sanders doesn't want to admit publicly. It's already too late for thousands of them. Because even with tax exemptions, even with federal promises, even with emergency meetings, the math doesn't work. And no amount of political speeches can save a farm when the bank says no. Most people think Governor Sanders is doing everything she can. She announced income tax exemptions for federal disaster payments. She toured farms across the Delta. She's met with farmers in Hot Springs, Stuttgart, and Brooklyn. She even said this at the 91st Arkansas Farm Bureau Convention. The bottom line is, our farmers are hurting. If a country can't feed itself, fuel itself, and fight for itself, it simply cannot survive. Powerful words, standing ovation, great optics. But walk into any bankruptcy attorney's office in Arkansas right now, and you'll hear a different story. Joel Hargis, a bankruptcy attorney in Jonesboro, said, "I have filed more Chapter 12s in the last 6 months than I have in any full year." Chapter 12 is the special bankruptcy designed specifically for farmers to restructure debt and keep farming. But that only works if your debt is under $12.5 million. If it's higher, you file Chapter 7, full liquidation. The farm dies. And despite Sanders' reassurances, she wrote an op-ed where she admitted farmers told her, one by one, how their neighbors and relatives were dropping out of the agriculture industry and having to scramble to find jobs elsewhere. They described it as a generational crisis. Translation: she knows. She's watching it happen in real time, and there's almost nothing she can do to stop it. In the first quarter of 2024, there were 45 Chapter 12 farm bankruptcy filings nationwide. In the first quarter of 2025, 88. That's nearly double in just 3 months. And Arkansas? In 2024, Arkansas accounted for more than 30% of farm bankruptcies in the entire 8th U.S. District Court. In 2025, we're sitting at 26.8%. And we still have 3 more quarters of data coming. But Chapter 12 filings only tell part of the story. With 70 auctions recently in the Arkansas Delta alone, there are hundreds more farmers filing Chapter 7, total liquidation, that don't even show up in these statistics yet. Ashley Schaffner, who's closing her 150-year family rice operation, said, "Making the decision to close a 150-year operation has not been easy. This was supposed to be a retirement auction, but actually, it was not a retirement auction. Over 300 items sold. Tractors went for half their expected value. Everything liquidated to pay off liens and debt." So when Governor Sanders announced tax exemptions on federal disaster payments, farmers did the math. Kirk Van Sant, Chief Agriculture Lending Officer at Farmers and Merchants Bank, told legislators, "If something is not done very quickly and substantially, I'm afraid people are going to go ahead and make decisions that they can't change back." Tax exemptions don't matter if you're bankrupt before the payments arrive. Shannon Hall's family has tilled the soil of Poinsett County, Arkansas for 11 generations, their roots stretching back to the Revolutionary War. His grandfather farmed this land, his great-grandfather before him, all the way back to the 1700s. At the height of their operation, Shannon and his family were farming 10,000 acres across northeast Arkansas: rice, soybeans, corn, cotton, everything the Delta grows. But after 30 years of farming, after surviving every crisis thrown at them for 240 years, Shannon Hall harvested his last crop in 2024. He couldn't find a lender willing to extend a crop loan for 2025. Shannon said, "The worst was me seeing the tractor I grew up driving as a kid leaving the farm. That tractor represented his childhood, his father's legacy, his grandfather's blood and sweat, and he watched it drive away forever. Now it's none of us with the last name Hall. The Hall family, after 11 generations, will never farm Arkansas again." And he's not alone. At a farmers' meeting in Brooklyn, a sixth-generation farmer from Newport stood up and prayed, "Farmers, in my opinion, dear Lord, they're closer to you than anyone else on this earth, because we deal with your earth every day. We're hurting, dear Lord. We can't help what happened to us. We need help." Governor Sanders heard that prayer. She knows what's coming. She's been petitioning the U.S. Department of Agriculture for farm aid. But prayers and petitions won't stop the exodus. To her credit, Governor Sanders isn't sitting idle. She signed Act 696 in 2025, which exempts farmers from paying Arkansas income tax on federal disaster relief payments through USDA programs. She helped secure a $5.56 billion trade deal between Arkansas and Taiwan in September. She's lobbying President Trump directly, saying, "President Trump absolutely loves our farmers and is working hard to announce support to help you overcome the hardships that you face this year." In September, U.S. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins, Sanders' close ally, called this the worst conditions farmers have faced in almost a century. Sanders called it the worst since the 1980s. But here's the brutal reality. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act passed aid for farmers, but that money doesn't hit bank accounts until fall 2026. Spring 2026 is when farmers need operating loans for seed, fertilizer, fuel, equipment. That's when banks decide if they'll finance another year. Kirk Van Sant told legislators, without aid, many in the industry believe 25 to 40% of farmers will decide to bow out after this season. Derek Highwood, a farmer from Independence County, summed it up. This time last year, the rice price was about 40% higher than it is now. Input costs have gone up, fertilizer has gone up, commodity prices have gotten worse. After a horrible year last year where most Delta farmers lost money, this year is going to be worse. Sanders knows this. At the Hot Springs Convention, she said, "I know it all sounds bleak, sad, and depressing, but amid all the bad news, I also have a tremendous amount of hope. I know we have big battles ahead, but if anyone can overcome them, it's the Arkansas farmer." Hope is what she's offering. Hope and tax exemptions on money that won't arrive in time. The Agricultural Council of Arkansas says 1 in 3 Arkansas farms will close next year without emergency federal payments. Sanders can't write that check. Only Congress can, and Congress isn't moving fast enough. So here's where we are. Governor Sanders is doing everything within her power: tax exemptions, trade deals, lobbying Washington, touring farms, begging for emergency aid. But farm bankruptcies are nearly double last year's rate. 70 farm auctions in 6 months in the Delta alone. Families that survived 11 generations are selling everything. Sanders wrote, "It's our state's culture, our history, and what knits communities like McGee together. And when these farms close, the entire rural economy collapses with them. The equipment dealers, the seed suppliers, the community banks, the gas stations, the schools lose students because families move away." Scott Brown of Brown Cattle Farms in Biggers said, "This has been in our family since the Oklahoma land rush, since the early 1800s, and I'm the one that's going to lose all this." He wanted his daughter to inherit the land, but the math doesn't work. At the Brooklyn farmers meeting, one farmer stood to pray. "Farmers, in my opinion, dear Lord, they're closer to you than anyone else on this earth, because we deal with your earth every day. We're hurting, dear Lord. We can't help what happened to us. We need help." Governor Sanders heard that prayer. She knows what's coming. She's been petitioning the U.S. Department of Agriculture for farm aid. But prayers and petitions won't stop the exodus.
And for thousands of Arkansas farming families, the decision has already been made. The only question left is how many more hauls will watch their tractors drive away before Washington acts.